Okay, wonderful. I'll kick us off then. So welcome everybody. I hope you're well and you're looking forward to learning more about this new fellowships opportunity with the Agriculture, Nutrition, and Health Academy. My name's Alex. I'm the project administrator of this new fellowships program, and I'm joined today by the program director, Dr. Will Masters. We're both based in the United States at the Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy at Tufts University. And I'm very excited to share more about this new opportunity with you all today. Will and I will share more about the ANH Academy itself. We'll share more about the program details, so priority research topics, the mentorship scheme and policy placement, and also the available support during your fellowship. We'll also share more about the online application process and demonstrate the actual online application portal for you so you can learn more about what that looks like. I ask that you save your questions until the end of this presentation, because we'll have plenty of time to discuss all of your questions about the fellowship after Will and I give our brief remarks at the beginning. So without further ado, I'll begin, our presentation here today. So this fellowship is hosted by the Agriculture, Nutrition, and Health Academy. The Agriculture, Nutrition, and Health Academy, or ANH Academy, is a global community of researchers, practitioners, and policymakers working to improve food systems for improved nutrition and health. We currently have over 10,000 members in 160 countries. You may know the ANH Academy best from our annual research conference called the ANH Academy Week, which attracts hundreds of interdisciplinary researchers to participate in our Learning Labs workshops, present abstracts and posters, and engage with our expert panels and plenary sessions. ANH Academy also supports researchers in a variety of ways in between these annual conferences, namely during our research community's monthly events, through research resources posted on our scanner portal, and through grants programs that we also operate with our program. ANH Academy will integrate all of these opportunities and more into this new fellowship experience, which makes this a very unique fellowship. I'll now turn it over to Will to provide a little bit more details about the fellowship program itself.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to everybody for joining. First of all, I'm so excited to be able to launch this. It's a brand new kind of fellowship program, something that I hope you find interesting and challenging and worth talking about in detail today, to hear from you some of your ideas, what you might be able to do with this idea of a fellowship program, and for us to be sure that we're taking full advantage of the opportunity. This is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as part of the next stage of the ANH Academy's development, which will be launched from the headquarters of the ANH Academy itself in London at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and that will involve in the future quite a lot of presence in both Africa and South Asia that's quite different from what the ANH Academy has done in the past. We'll be building on the legacy of the Academy that was been growing for about a decade, and bring us into a new phase that starts with this ANH Academy Science Policy Fellowships and a grants program you may have seen, and other activities that will be launched in the new year. So the next slide gives us a picture of what this fellowship consists of. What is our goal? The goal begins with bringing all of the research that each of you has done into policy making, into decisions, to bring evidence to decision makers in either sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia, where you're taking results of the impact assessments or program evaluations or policy analyses. These are qualitative studies, mixed methods, sometimes quantitative simulations of what would happen if a policy decision were made differently. And by policy, we mean any public sector program or activity Sometimes these are investments or regulations or service delivery in the public sector, defined very broadly to mean, of course, the government, often a federal government, but also local or regional government and civil society that's engaged with government. So our goal is to bring data to decisions, to have the impact assessments and the policy analyses that people do in the ANH Academy community, to have those be brought directly to the desk of a decision maker somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia. And our second goal is to build your skills and experience so that the ANH Academy members in South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa are able to translate the results of their scientific work, to position themselves and the evidence that they have acquired through studies to guide the decisions over time in the future. As you'll see, this is a one-year program, but we hope that our investments in you pay off over the decades, where you are able to bring the skills and experience that you would gain through this 1 year of fellowship into your next job. So this is a career development fellowship, as well as an immediate impact fellowship. And we have two specific topical goals that we'll talk about a bit more. First, to increase use of healthy diets, and second, to reduce the wastefulness of supply chains that may be bringing food from production to consumers in ways that are not as efficient as possible due to food loss and waste. We are extremely keen to have cross-cutting attention to both climate change, that includes both adaptation to climate shocks and extreme weather, and also mitigation efforts to limit further emissions. And of course, very deeply concerned with the inequities, particularly gender inequities, but also inequities based on any form of discrimination and structural bias in societies. These transformative actions regarding climate change or equity could be in either use of healthy diets or reduction of loss and waste. So the next slide gives us a little more detail to think about what we actually will do. So the first point is that it's for precisely 12 months of activity, supported by a fixed stipend. This is not a cost reimbursement project. This is a fixed sum of money that each fellow spends as they see fit according to the proposal that you've made, adapted over time during the year. And this is very important because you will learn things in your first few months that mean you need to do things slightly differently in each subsequent quarter of the work. So it's a total of 52,600 British pounds, and that's intended to support a full-time activity, that you would be on leave or having completed something, some other task, and devote yourself fully to this. But of course, it is leveraging other activities. So it is possible that there are other activities going on, and a key part of every proposal is to specify exactly what else you would be doing in addition to the program. In other words, it's a year of activity that includes things that you might also be doing as part of this year. So it's important to spell out all the activities in these 12 months. And the next point is to say that the fellow is not working alone, that as in the previous fellowships that were called Imana fellowships, these new ANH science policy fellowships that are quite different from the previous ones. But one thing we have that's the same is the idea of two mentors. So mentorship is often seen as just one person. We're very keen to ensure that careers are supported by more than one mentor. In this case, we are emphasizing the policy mentor, who is someone in a public sector organization within sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia, who can advise on the use of research results for policy decisions. It is crucial that this policy mentor be in a decision-making role. This is the central challenge of our science policy fellowships and of this whole new phase of ANH Academy activity, is to deploy science to serve decisions, not just scholarly impact in terms of citations by other researchers, but in this case, for this project, to have mentorship from a person in a decision-making role. This is something new. This is something very, very difficult, and it is something that is central to our work. So the goal for us is to think, who do you know? Who could help you find a decision maker? Who could help you find someone in government or in civil society close to government who can credibly help you translate your results into actual policy or program changes? But of course, the evidence has to be scientifically valid. So we ask that every fellow have a research mentor who can hold on to the scientific side of this chain, of this pathway from research to decisions, and ensure that the evidence is scientifically valid, that the data are collected and have been collected, that the analysis methods to transform data into guidance have been done in a state-of-the-art manner. So both the policy mentor and the research mentor are crucial. They are asking you about your network, about your connections, and it is a crucial part of the fellowship application process. And the next bullet specifies how we proceed during the year. We are extremely flexible regarding start dates, anytime between June and December, and extremely flexible, as I said, regarding exactly how the funds are spent. There are no receipts. We're not reimbursing any travel or other things, but you do have a high level of accountability done through quarterly reports, in exchange for which the next payment is released. And those quarterly reports have to say how you're changing, how you're learning, what you've discovered and done differently from your initial proposal. You make a 12-month proposal with a timeline and work plan, and that work plan should change. You should learn in your first few months how it works, what you need to do, and you can say, oh, my plan by coincidence is exactly perfect, or much more likely, my plan needs to adjust for one reason or another. And we do that through frequent conversations. So Alex and I would talk with you, in some cases several times in a row, in some cases just once or twice every few months. But we would have regular webinars with the group and individual feedback through email. And the next point, just to continue finalizing the idea, is that we have a pretty rapid timeline to get these proposals into consideration and to notify candidates by the 15th of April for those start dates that would happen between June and December. So between now and the 14th of February, we hope that candidates who have networks, who have contacts and could find suitable policy mentors and who can leverage the previous research that you've done. Remember, this is building on an impact assessment or policy analysis or any sort of program evaluation or any kind of mixed methods, qualitative, quantitative study of how policies or programs might affect outcomes in agriculture, nutrition, and health regarding either use of healthy diets or food loss and waste in production and supply. If you have done previous work and you have a network that could bring you into contact with a policy mentor and a research mentor, we want to hear from you. And we believe that's possible to have really extraordinary candidates come forward, people on this call, and undoubtedly also others, so that we can really have a transformative opportunity through this program, which, as I said, is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as part of the next phase of the ANH Academy. So the next slide explains a little bit more about what we are expecting. This is a new thing. This is not something that would normally be possible. That's the entire point of our ANH fellowships. They are an exceptional opportunity. They are due to the extraordinary efforts of the team that created the ANH Academy to get the generosity of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to give us this very unusual new kind of opportunity. This is not something that anyone would have thought about previously. It is not the same kind of thing that previously existed. There are, of course, many, many projects that try to influence government. Many, many efforts are funded to change what governments do. This is a different thing because we're not pre-specifying what the government decision outcomes should be. We're only specifying that you, as researchers, have something to offer and need to be helped, have the opportunity to be helped to bring your evidence into decision making. And we think that that would take about a third of your working time in the year. And you may have opportunities to devote quite a bit more than that. You could, in fact, be entirely full-time within a government agency. You could have an office in a government agency during this year. You could be physically present in decision-making during the course of a week and a month and a year in a government office. Or perhaps you would be working remotely with your policy mentor and with decision makers in government where you're providing evidence in a variety of ways. Our goal is hands-on experience. Our goal is that you are in conversation with decision makers. Our goal is that you know what's going on. This is very challenging. It's new, it's different. In most settings, universities and researchers and think tanks and research institutes are separate from decision making, and we believe it is possible to have a closer connection between science and policy, that we can have science policy fellowships that emphasize guidance to decision makers, and that will help the fellow to build connections, to build your skills, to build your knowledge for a transformative career bringing science to policies. And the next slide, the next bullet points here, suggests some kinds of illustrative activities. We do not know what will actually work. We hope that each of you, we know that each of you has ideas, has experience, has insights and imagination. And you can think, oh, this is something that might work in my setting. So for example, perhaps your country has, and your region, your location of interest, has some kind of advisory panels or committees or task forces or working groups that you could be a member of in an official capacity. Perhaps you could actually manage a consultative process, such as hearings or comment periods, some kind of system in which a government agency, a decision maker, might be trying to have input from some group of stakeholders, and you could manage that. Often there are translational roles where a person's job is to create public-facing or sometimes an internal government white papers and reports and infographics, as well as events, dissemination events for stakeholders, where you would be translating results into more actionable information than just the scientific publications that we normally focus on. It's possible that your role would be a liaison role from one agency to another. It's possible that you would be a liaison role between civil society and government, or between international organizations and national or regional bodies. And it's possible that you would be engaging external stakeholders, that you would be working on behalf of some decision maker with regard to some external stakeholders. For example, a national government looking to engage with international partners. So you can imagine that any of these illustrative activities, or plenty of other activities, are opportunities for data to be brought into decisions, for scientific research results that are impact assessments or policy analyses or program evaluations that you yourself will have done, that you will have taken previous studies that others have done as well, but especially things in which you are the expert, in which you have scientific expertise that is often, frankly, lacking in government decision-making, and bring some of that to the table of decision makers. So the next slide focuses on the specific questions that we believe have been under-investigated because they're new challenges. They are opportunities for evidence to dramatically improve the trajectory of change in Africa and South Asia. The first is creating demand for healthy foods. That would include any kind of action that affects access or affordability, and then also food choice among those available options. When we say demand creation, we mean that people are able and want to and actually do consume an overall healthy diet. By overall healthy diet, we mean a diet that is in accordance with dietary guidelines in terms of the food groups that are needed for overall health, with moderation of the discretionary foods that would be associated with diet-related diseases. So demand creation for healthy foods can involve any kind of method, any kind of research, impact assessment, or program evaluation, or policy analysis that would show how an action of government can help create demand for healthy foods. Or a researcher might be able to address the losses and waste in food supply and food use that occur anywhere along the supply chain from farm production to the final end user, and the disposal of food waste that currently, as you know, often is a very leaky bucket, a very leaky pipeline from farm to consumer, in which much lower environmental impacts and lower cost and higher nutritional value could be achieved through a supply system from production and food distribution that is less loss and waste. So we're interested both in demand creation for healthy diets and in the reduction of loss and waste along the supply chain through to disposal. And each of these domains should also address the cross-cutting issues of either climate change and the environment, or equity and gender, or both. And it is entirely possible that a project could address all four of these themes. It is also possible that a project could address only two of them. That is, for example, be focused on loss and waste with respect to climate change, or any three, combination of three, or any combination of four. But it's essential that projects have at least one or the other of the two priority areas and one or the other of the two cross-cutting themes, although projects, of course, could have three or four of them. And the next slide explains a little bit about how we hope these projects are framed for the decision about which fellowship proposals to be funded, and also to the public about what our projects are. So we want titles for these projects to be framed in the format that we show here, in which the proposal specifies what evidence is to be used, what is the scientific finding, what are the data, and what is the method that informs specific policy decisions. If there is not a decision maker, there is not a project. If there is not a government official making an actual specific decision that you have explained what it is, there's not a project here. And our selection criteria is whether it's important, whether it will matter for a lot of people. If it's a minor thing, it's less interesting. If it's a major thing, we care about it. So here are some examples of the kinds of titles that we think might conceivably provide a really valuable project. The first one, the title might be, for example, Effects of ICDS Childcare Reforms on Demand for Healthy Diets in Rural and Urban Communities of Bihar in India. That's a title that, as you can see, begins with something about the program evaluation or policy analysis or impact assessment, and it specifies exactly who is the decision maker. A reader might not know what is ICDS, but you could Google it and find out. You know what it's doing. You know what is the decision. You know which of our domains the project is about, and you specify for whom it mattered. Bihar is a large place. This is a large program. This is a big deal. This is something that would matter to a lot of people. Here's another example, economy-wide analysis of PFJ 2.0 investments on food waste and demand for healthy diets in Ghana. And again, someone else might not know that this stands for Program for Food and Jobs. 2.0 is a second version of Ghana's agricultural investment program called the Program for Food and Jobs. And economy-wide analysis signals that this is some kind of economic study of the macro economy, of the way that labor and employment or unemployment, as well as prices and inflation, might matter, where you are thinking about the economy as a whole in a circulating system, in contrast to a study of a particular sector. And this would be about food waste and also demand for healthy diets. Another example, extreme weather forecasting to reduce losses in fish production and supply chains in Bangladesh. Ethnographic evidence to guide municipal food waste reduction in Lagos. Or cost effectiveness of agricultural extension to reduce post-harvest losses. You can see that in each of these cases, there's very different kinds of scientific research. In this case, this might be a purely qualitative study. Someone has done ethnographic research. Perhaps with anthropological training, they would be using the methods of ethnography to discover how to improve municipal food waste reduction. Cost effectiveness, that could be done in a variety of different ways. And extreme weather forecasting would be primarily a statistical kind of study. So you can see that we're interested in all kinds of research methods applied to all kinds of policy decisions regarding either demand for healthy diets or food loss and waste. And we are hoping to find whatever kinds of proposals that most effectively leverage the knowledge of the ANH Academy community, of each of you on this call. So the next slide has us move into the mentorship, where we want the research mentors to be able to ensure that the evidence is of the highest scientific quality and that they have a good relationship with the fellow, meaning that in many cases, this will be the fellow's prior academic advisor or collaborator. And it may be at the current institution from which the fellow would be taking a leave of absence for this year of activity. The policy mentor is someone whose job is to ensure that the research is relevant for decision making, that they have a role in a policy organization and they are accountable to some decision makers above them, and that they would be trying to deploy the resources of this ANH Academy Science Policy Fellow for best use in their policy organization. They may be someone with whom you have a prior relationship, but it may be someone who you find through your network. But again, the crucial new thing here is asking researchers to find a relationship with the decision maker in government. This is usually not something that you previously have. This is usually something new. It's something difficult. It's something that would require a lot of emails and phone calls and connecting and meetings to try to arrange a policy mentor who can give a credible proposal that will really matter for decision making. This is the central new thing, the different thing, the thing that people have not done previously, that for this project, we're asking for people who might have some opportunity to bring evidence into government. And that must be in an organization working in Sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia. And again, the selection criteria is whether it's going to matter, whether the policy placement will affect the lives of larger numbers of people in more significant, substantial ways. So that is the mentorship role. And the next slide proceeds to say a little bit about what happens. So we'll have quarterly webinars where each fellow presents and discusses what they're doing, where we are able to, we hope, gain insight into best practices for career development in this science to policy framework, that will have monthly research community events where people are presenting and discussing, and a lot of personalized engagement. Some of you, I hope, will be able to come to the ANH Academy Week in June in Dar es Salaam, but certainly participate in online events around that in June. But increasingly, the ANH Academy is having activities around the year in addition to the flagship Academy Week that Alex mentioned at the start of the conversation. So the next slide has us move into details, and Alex will share from here forward.
Great. Thank you so much, Will. So now that we've heard more about the fellowship opportunity and all of the parts of it, including the mentorship, policy placement, the priority research topics, you may be wondering upon which selection criteria will my application be assessed. And so, as Will mentioned, the overarching theme of all five of these criteria are, does this project matter? Does this project help bring data into decision making? Does it help inform new or existing policies with scientific evidence? And also, does this project further the applicant's career? Does this change the trajectory of their career for the better and set them up for a career of policy evaluation and bringing this evidence into decision making? So you'll see we have 5 selection criteria in a rubric that totals up to 100 possible points in each application. And I'll discuss a little bit about each of these 5 criteria now, starting with the quality and feasibility of the proposed work plan. So this just encapsulates the validity and usefulness of the prior research. So this could be, your dissertation project, your current work at your institution, anything that you've done in the past that will be built upon for this work, and the scientific data and methodology upon which this new project will build. So asking the question, are you prepared to undertake this work, building on your prior experiences? And this is especially important because this fellowship is only 1 year in length. We need to know that you are not going to start from a standing start, that you will start running, if you'll follow my metaphor, and that candidates will have the prior experience and skills to succeed in this fellowship year. That is worth 25 points, which is the most for each one of these criteria, and is the same value as this next criteria, which is the potential impact of this proposed work plan to change public sector actions and inform the decision making. And I want to call out the word large scale. So to inform public sector actions for large scale improvement in agriculture, nutrition, and health. This goes back to what Will and I have been saying about the potential effect of this project being large, mattering for decisions that people care about, for decisions that someone that might not even be in your research area or just the common person in your country or location, that they would know what this project means. The third criteria discusses the policy placement of the candidate within a public sector institution, so either within government or a civil society organization very close to government, and also brings in the commitment of those 2 mentors, the research and policy mentor, into the project. This criteria will draw from both the proposal and also the reference letters that your mentors and your policy organization submit to accompany your application. This criteria is worth 20 points, so slightly less than the first 2. And the following 2 are worth even less, but are still quite important. But they're quite self-explanatory, so I won't spend as much time on these. The fourth is just an assessment of your commitment and your prior experiences to achieve the fellowship program goals, as we've discussed at the beginning of this call, and is also detailed in the call for applications. And the last is also just an assessment of how your work plan will further your own career and enable you to be prepared for future leadership roles to inform public sector actions. This is especially important for Will and I because we've worked on this prior Imana Fellowships program, which is now 10 years old. And as we've discussed, we're now moving into this new focus. And we've seen these prior Imana Fellows just have these wonderful career opportunities where they're now in leadership roles, in universities, in government, international organizations. And so we're very keen to learn how you think your proposed work and your interest in taking data, turning it into decision making, informing policy with science will help you in your career trajectory to also hopefully have those high impact career roles later on. So all of these criteria and all of what Will and I have discussed so far today are detailed in the call for applications document available on our website, which I hope you've already seen before. It also includes numerous frequently asked questions at the end of the document. This has been circulated in many channels and communities of practice, including Ag2New, AgriLinks, and many others. And we've reached thousands of people, including many of you here today, in many countries around the world. This brings us to the application process. And so now I'll show you our online application portal and what that will look like for you when you apply. So we use an online application process called Submittable. This is helpful for our team because it allows us to quickly screen and review all applications and also bring in experts outside of our team to assess the scientific quality of applications as well. So if you'll give me a moment, I will pull up the application form itself. So I'll be able to show you exactly what you'll see when you submit your application. So this is what the submittable platform will look like after you are ready to submit. So you'll see at the top, it says ANH Academy Science Policy Fellowships, full application for the 2025-2026 round. This is how you'll know you're in the right form. And these first few questions just ask for background about who you are. So it'll ask for your full name. This will be the name that you would use on any official document or as appears on any professional purpose. We'll also ask for your email address, gender, nationality, and where you currently reside, as well as your current employment or affiliation. And because this is a postdoctoral fellowship, meaning that each candidate must have completed a doctoral or terminal degree, we will also ask for details about your doctorate information, including your degree, the year, your institution, and dissertation title. We also ask that you upload a copy of your resume, which you can do just by clicking that Choose File button. So after you've entered in the information about yourself, we'll ask for information about your proposed policy and research mentors. So you'll enter in each of your mentors' name and institutional affiliation. You'll select their gender and add their email address into the field required. Now, I'll put in my email as an example, and you'll see now that I'm able to hit this Send Request Now button. So this is different than submitting the entire application form. You can submit your mentor request at any time prior to completing your application, or you could do it at the end. Either is fine. But if I hit this button, it means that the email I've entered in here for the policy mentor will receive a form asking for their reference letter. And I'll show you what that form looks like right now. So the form is titled Reference Form for ANH Fellowships 2025-2026 application. And your mentor will receive a link to open this form in their email. It will have the same information about their name and employments and resume as your application form, but also include this request to submit the reference letter. And you'll see that there's information about the different types of reference letters beneath the button to select the reference letter itself. And what I would recommend is that, in your dialogue with your proposed mentors, that you be very specific about which mentorship role you are selecting them for and what is required in each of those letters, which is detailed both here and then, of course, in the call for applications. So just to discuss briefly, the research mentor's letter should be brief and no more than 2 pages. And this should really be focused on your scientific skills and experience, because that is what they're helping you with. That is what they know the most about. And it should hopefully also include a bit about the specific data and methods that you'll use in the project. And it will also include a description of how the research mentor will help you in the use of scientific data and how they will contribute to the project. The policy mentor should have a similar length letter, just 1 or 2 pages, to describe how both you and your project will be integrated into their organization and work. So this will describe their own proposed contribution to your project, but more importantly, how they will enable you to conduct your work to bring data into their decisions, to bring scientific evidence into their policy. And the last letter is from the policy organization. So I think now it's important to note that this policy organization will almost certainly be the organization in which the policy mentor works. We anticipate that the policy mentor will be embedded, working in the policy organization that is the focus of your project, though in some cases they may be slightly different. So this letter will describe the nature and sort of logistics and timing of the policy placement. So, as Will mentioned, this could be having an actual appointment within the government agency, having a desk. It also could be any of the illustrative activities we described earlier in the presentation. And this can be very brief, less than a page, just describing and illustrating the organization's interest and commitment in your work and spelling out the nature and timing of the placement. So as I've said, in most cases, the policy mentor would also write this letter, though it is possible that another person at the policy organization would provide this. So this is what the reference form looks like. It'll be the same for each of your mentors or policy organizers. Now back to the application form. You'll be asked to enter in the mentor information for both of your mentors, and then enter in the information for your policy organization. They'll each receive an email with a link to the reference form I've just showed you. You can also enter in the name of an additional supporter, though this is optional. So a good example might be if you have a academic appointment now, but you'd like to include the details of your PhD advisor, they might go here. And now you'll be able to enter in your project title. So using the naming convention that Will described to be specific and clear about the method and data sources, the policy and program, and the development goal or outcome in the geographic location of interest. We hope that your title will be able to clearly communicate what and why, the what and why of your project. We've also allowed you to submit a document containing your full project proposal. And you'll see we've detailed each part of the project proposal here as is included in the call for applications. So this will just simply be a Word document or PDF file that you upload using this button containing each of these details about your project. And you'll see once you reach the end of the application, there's just brief reminders about the deadline for full submission being the 14th of February and the selection date for our next fellows. Once you reach the end and have completed all these forms, you'll be able to hit submit. And as you build your application and work on this form, it's just important to note that we won't be able to see any of your drafts. So if you're changing things, if you upload different letters or different proposals, rather, we won't be able to see anything until you hit this submit button. So I'll pull up the slides once more. So we can discuss the timeline and the next steps for this fellowship. So you'll see we've broken things down into 4 phases. We're currently in the first one, which is recruiting candidates. So as I am hoping you've all seen, our call for applications document has already launched and is available on the ANH Academy website. And we're currently accepting applications. The application form is live and accepting proposals. We've already received a few. We're accepting applications until the 14th of February, and mentors are able to submit their references until the end of that month. After the end of February, we'll begin selecting our next cohort of science policy fellows. Proposals will be screened, every proposal will be read, and eligible proposals will be scored by a review panel in the months following the submission deadline. After all proposals have been scored and discussed, we'll select a slate of 3 fellows, including 1 to 2 alternates, that will submit for approval within our team in April. After we've established our final selection, our final cohort, we will notify these candidates no later than the 15th of April, 2025. After candidates have accepted their fellowships, which we hope they do, we'll begin supporting projects between June and December of next year. We have this long period in which fellows can begin their projects to hopefully be as flexible as possible and be as equitable as possible in allowing fellows to start their work. As we'll discuss, the fixed stipend payments will be paid against these quarterly reports where you document progress and your learnings and your growth over the year. And we'll have frequent contacts in email, in Zoom calls, in webinars with all groups of the fellows, as well as participation in all of the ANH Academy's offerings, be it research communities or the ANH Academy Week conference. And we've already discussed the fixed stipend, which you can see below again is £52,600. And the mentors are also paid for their support, being £2,200 each for the year. So I'd like to flag that if you have any questions at any point during your application, you can email us at anhfellowships@tufts.edu, where Will and I will quickly respond to your questions and try to help you as best as we can. And you can see a variety of resources on our website at anhacademy.org. There you'll find the call for applications document, you'll find a recording of this session, and you'll also find the link to apply and see that form that I just showed you. So with that, we'll conclude the presentation portion of our informational webinar today, and we'll open things up to questions where Will and I can hopefully help you answer any open questions you have after our presentation. So I welcome you to just raise your hand virtually here on Zoom, or ask any question you have in the chat. Either is fine for us. So
And
I
I would
see,
emphasize this is our first experience of this, so I'm very keen to hear what you
yeah,
think, what ideas you might have for the program. Yes, and start with Alemne.
Thank you, yes, both of you for availing the opportunity and also giving this orientation on how to proceed with the application and engaging with you. So saying this, I want to raise two questions. One is just I have gone through the PDF of this version, this presentation, and also this orientation is also very nice. But what I learned from both is I think we have to link this fellowship proposal with our PhD or doctoral works. So in relation to this, what I wanted to ask is this must, or we have a room, or there is an opportunity to do a very different research idea, but related to the PhD work. So that is the first. And secondly, my question is about the policy institute placement. So during the policy institute placement, are we expected to do a separate activity of that policy institute, or just to continue working on the proposal? We will apply using it to this fellowship while we are placed at the policy institute. Thank you. Back to you.
So I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure I understand how to respond. But yes, you would be building directly on your dissertation or other prior work. And so if you have done an impact assessment or policy analysis or program evaluation, you would be bringing that information to decision makers about those policies and programs. But I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I
Alex, do you have a
also,
better sense?
I think if I understand your question right, you were asking about a potential difference between the policy placement and the project proposal. I want to
Yeah.
emphasize that those are the same. So the policy
Mm.
placement supports your proposal and is part of what you're doing. Um, you will be working on a project within for the policy organization that is the focus of your topic and is the place where you're doing the placement. So they're not separate, they're part of the same thing. Does that help?
Yeah. So this means we will be implementing our proposal while placed at the policy institute.
Exactly, yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Because the proposal is not for new research. That is not the goal. The goal
Okay.
is to leverage past research. It is possible that in your fellowship year, you would need to collect some additional data and do some additional data analysis. But that data analysis or additional data would be for translation, would be for turning what you already know, what researchers have already discovered, into actionable information. This is not a research project. And then we have Wenda and Al Hassan, and then Diana.
Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, just from the previous question. So if we are building from previous studies, maybe from like our previous dissertations, is it possible like to try something in terms of an experiment or a pilot study, which is built from the findings of our previous research already? Is that eligible?
Excellent question. No, this is not a place to do pilot studies or new research. This is not an opportunity for that. But that's a very good question. You would not do new research in this project. You might have to collect some additional data, and you might have to do some additional data analysis for the purpose of translation and application. But if you do not already have clear results of an impact assessment or policy evaluation or the kind of evidence that you can get from systematic reviews and other kinds of prior research, then this is not the project for you. This is not a project for new, this is not a call for new research. Thank you, that's very important. And then Al-Hassan and Diana?
Yes, thank you so much for the insight given to us. I want to know from the presentation, the illustrative titles. Is it something that someone have done before or not? Because on my side in Ghana, 2 years ago, I was privileged to assess the uh, the project, which is the modernizing agriculture in Ghana. I know this current government, it was signed by the previous government with the government of Canada as a project that runs for 6 to 7 years. Then this current government changed it to planting for food and jobs. So in assessing the modernizing agriculture in Ghana, that was 2-3 years ago, it's something I was trying to write. I don't know whether somebody has done something on the planting for food and jobs. I just wanted to get clarification on that.
Excellent question. No, the illustrative examples are based just on scanning, knowing what people generally work on, commonly, typically, most often work on. So those are examples that are purely hypothetical. There's not any particular person for any of them. Thank you. And then Diana, and then Yanko.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation. So I have a couple of questions. Some were partly answered, but the first one, for a policy mentor and organization, would it have to be something like a ministry, or it could be, let's say, a UN agency or something like that? So that's the first question. The second question is, so I have two options. I mean, maybe based on what you responded, one of them in terms of projects, which was the one that I was really passionate and thinking that would be perfect for this. It's still ongoing though. So maybe by June, December next year, we would have partial results. It's an effectiveness study of local recipes for reducing malnutrition in Mozambique. And it has a huge impact because it's supposed to really inform policy to be used nationwide. But as I said, we won't have final data by then because it's a longitudinal study. We'll be maybe halfway. Is that possible or really not?
Excellent.
The other option that I was saying is a past study on stunting reduction, but it's not so directly. It's a multi-sectoral program that's completed, where I was involved.
But both questions are very important. The first one concerns the nature of the policy placement, the second about the nature of the evidence that you would bring. So let's start with the policy placement. In both, well, actually for both of these, any of the things you mentioned are eligible. The question is just which are the most competitive, which would be the most desirable in terms of the goals of the funder and of our program, of the ANH Academy community in general. So the answer is that for the policy placement, it would be eligible to have an international organization or civil society. Our goal is to be as close as possible to decision making, as close as possible to the actual levers of power. Now, of course, you're not going to get a policy placement in the prime minister's office, with an office next to the prime minister. Like, that's not going to happen. You might not even get to the Minister of Agriculture or the Minister of Health or the Minister of Education for school meals. You might, however, get to program directors to have a policy placement with in a line ministry. By line ministry, we mean a ministry that's directly responsible for delivering services to people. That would be the ideal. But in actual practice, we don't often get very close to government. Government is not sitting around waiting for academics and researchers to tell them what to do. That's not how policies work. So often you need to be part of civil society which could include international organizations, attempting to influence government. But remember, there are billions and billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands, millions of people trying to influence government every day. And we have one particularly distinctive lever here, which is a new kind of project, a kind of policy fellowship that never existed before, that we hope could make a difference. So the closer you can get to decision making, the better. And then similarly, the more complete the evidence you have, the better. So I don't know which of the two kinds of research would be the more impactful, but only you can judge as you think about writing your proposal, which will be the most compelling, which is likely to change minds and to influence decisions. So then
But the
Janko,
fact that it's not complete, that it's not 100% complete, is that not eligible?
it's eligible. The question is it likely to be chosen? So you can send an email with description of the two, and we can tell you which seems more plausible from the way you've described it.
Okay,
And then, so Janko and then Antene.
thank you.
Hi, William. Thank you very much for you and Alex's presentation. That was quite informative. My question was maybe more or less to build upon what the other questions were based on the scope of the call. So this was now in relation to people in practice. I see that your reference has primarily been to the research that people are doing. Then you've got people like me who are like clinical nutritionists that might not have research, but we do have impact type of implementation science, so to say. Maybe we work in the private sector, but are also academics, and we do have that evidence from some of the programs that we have implemented, and we have seen that are working in the private sector, and we would like to get this to government. Would that be something that would be eligible? Since it's not like I'm coming with evidence to say this is my published work, but I would be coming with evidence to say this is the implementation evidence of the different programs we have worked on that we would like to now get to government. So that was my first question. My second question was, I think it was answered, so it's okay. Maybe when you answer that, I might be able to get back to it. Thanks.
Very good. The answer is yes. They would definitely be eligible. There would be a challenge to find who is your research mentor, who can address the scholarly or scientific validity of the implementation science you would bring from the private sector experience, but that would definitely be eligible. Yes. Thank you.
All right.
I think the sequence was Antene next, and then Seven.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a very good presentation. And hello?
Go ahead, Antene.
Please.
Okay, it was a very good presentation, very informative. Thank you very much. I have one question. Me and my team conducted a research, interventional research, and we came up with very encouraging results, especially in prevention of malnutrition. So the research, the nature of the intervention integrates nutrition in agriculture. So I'm thinking just to contact the Ministry of Agriculture, people from there, and to have a policy mentor from there, and also because they also contacted me before, and they might be interested, as they already informed me, they want to implement it in a large scale. So is it possible to use this fund? Maybe, I don't know, possible to do some large scale intervention, or at least to provide some training for implementers at the ministry level or regional level or zonal level implementers? Is that possible, or can this money be used for large scale implementation if the minister, the directorate doesn't have maybe the budget to implement in large scale? I want to know that. Thank you very much.
Excellent. That's an excellent question. So the budget is fixed you can see what the amount is. It's paid in British pounds, so it does vary with the exchange rate. And you absolutely can use it in and specify in your proposal whatever method of whatever activity, whatever set of expenditure you think is most effective. So, for example, it is aptly possible to say that you will fund out of the budget a set of workshops, a set of travel around the country to consult with stakeholders, that you would use the budget to have events, you would use the budget to have participation of decision makers through workshops, for example. That is certainly what is possible. But the goal here is translation, to communicate and to take evidence that has already been collected and make it relevant and useful to decision makers. So it would not be to pay for the actual new research or actual delivery of the work. This is not a project in the usual sense. This is a new kind of thing. We hope we have been clear about what the goal is. We know it's very rare. Most people have never done anything like this. And the opportunity to do it will be unusual. It will be something that's exceptional. There's only 3 for all of South Asia and all of Sub-Saharan Africa, in part because we think this is an unusual thing. This is not a normal business as usual kind of project. And I think Sebin was next, and then Catherine. And
yes, thank you, Williams, for giving me this opportunity. So regarding the science policy fellowship, one thing is because when I first read about it, I thought it is that we have to put up a research proposal. So I have made up a research proposal and all those. It is a new project, a new proposal. But now, from after hearing this presentation, I understood it is not the thing. So is it that my confusion is that, for example, we have there are so much of literature that the introduction of kitchen garden has improved the dietary score of the rural women, or we were able to improve the dietary quality of the rural women. So is that the research proposal should include how we are going to implement that? Is it something related that, or how we are going to make the policy regarding that? Is it how we have to frame, how we are going to bring the policy regarding the same? That should be our research proposal. That was my first question. And because since this is not a research proposal for a new project, so how we are going to allocate our budget? Because normally the research proposal is that regarding the data collection, our timeline will be allocated. What is the time required for data collection? What is the time required for literature review? This is the normal research proposal. So in here for the policy, how will be allocating our budget and the timeline? That's my second question.
Very good question. Yes. So the answer is that you would have a proposal to make, a potential science policy project, only if there is an actual government program. If there is no government program, there is no proposal under this project, under this particular call. For home gardens, for example, there would have to be a study of an actual existing or potential government agency decision in which there are extension or engagement outreach staff doing things at the government, for the government, or some kind of regulation or some kind of policy. Does that make sense? So our task is to inform government decisions, not to discover something new about the world, but rather to take an existing or potential change in policies and programs. So if it's home gardens, the topic would be the government home garden program. And I'm actually not sure who was next, who has hands that have not yet.
I think as Catherine, you've been able to ask your question yet? Perhaps Catherine, then
Back to
Hello.
Jakob. Catherine, yes.
Yeah. That was a good presentation. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Good. My question is, in the past, I missed on the eligibility criteria and I wanted to know, because I work at a university and I graduated in 2014 for my PhD. So do I qualify? Because we usually have a period.
Yes,
So
yes,
am I
this is at any
eligible?
career stage.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And there is in the chat a question of whether you can extend for additional 3 months, and the answer is no. This is only 12 months.
So I would add to Judy's question, if you do seek to collect some additional data during the course of your 1-year fellowship, that is an appropriate expense for the stipend. So you are able to do that. So we would anticipate that most people bring in the data that they need to use prior to beginning their fellowship.
So Antone and Yanko, do you want to come back? I don't see
Yes.
any other hands up. So maybe Antone first.
Thank you very much. I was also writing my questions on the chat box, and I got a response for that. Because currently I'm not affiliated with any organization. I'm working as a consultant, and I asked on the chat box that I am also eligible as long as I have both the research and the policy mentors. So
Yes.
thank you for yeah.
Very good, excellent, thank you. And Yanko?
Yes. So my other question was, I might have missed it because I jumped off for a little bit during the presentation. But it was based on, is it possible for you to work like on a theme? That would mean, for example, I'm a nutritionist, so my work is on all forms of malnutrition, which means you're looking at stunting, wasting, underweight, but also the other spectrum of it, which is underweight and related comorbidities. So would we be limited to stick to one theme? So let's say I can only bring in a proposal that's going to try and impact policy on the malnutrition spectrum of things, like the underweight, stunting, and undernutrition, or is it possible to bring in from the full spectrum of the definition of malnutrition and its related morbidities? Would there be, I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yes, so these projects could address any aspect of diet quality for health, but remember, there's 2 possible thematic topics. One is demand creation for healthy diets, meaning access and affordability, and then choice from among the affordable options, so that concerns demand creation, whether people actually choose an overall healthy diet, which of course then influences all of the outcomes, Yanko, that you mentioned, both undernutrition as well as overweight, obesity, diet-related diseases, such as diabetes and hypertension. But the goal would be either research affecting policy decisions about demand creation, or policy decisions about loss and waste in the supply chain. Does that make sense? So there would need to be a policy or a program that the government is doing that affects either demand for healthy foods or loss and waste along the supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
And remember, these are broadly defined, but they do exclude, some things that people definitely work on. So it's not a research call for anything. It's not any kind of research. It's those 2 specific topics. And we do have time to discuss specific ideas. It's perfectly possible to share, specific questions and talk about those. Some of you have tossed out some themes, kinds of research that you've done. Very interesting for everyone, I think, to hear what this community has been working on that reflects the priorities that each of you has in your own careers. Antone, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, thank you. Is there any past experience on this? Do you have, I mean, ANH Academy, is there any past experience on such fellowship? Can we see that?
Yeah, excellent question. So the answer is no. There are precedents. There are examples of other kinds of things that this is a combination of. This is a combination of our own previous IMANA fellowships. Remember, IMANA stood for Innovative Methods and Metrics for Agriculture Nutrition Actions, IMMANA. That was the precursor project. There were two phases of IMANA for the past decade to develop the methods and metrics that have guided action. So there was methods development for new metrics in phase 1, and then validation and use of those metrics in phase 2 of IMANA. And this new ANH Academy Science Policy Platform is aimed to use those. So those were 12-month fellowships. There was a much larger number of fellowships each year. And we had focus on first development of metrics and then validation and use of metrics. So we're building on that. And we're also building on the many other projects that attempt to influence government. Remember, there are billions of dollars spent on trying to change government, trying to influence government. So we're learning from all the policy fellowships, all of the many kinds of programs in which people have been placed in government. And we're trying to do something that is new and different and could matter a lot. So there's no exact precedent for this, but there's a lot of lessons learned from previous work. And we hope that those lessons are clear in the call, specifically the way that the application process asks you to specify what policy and program you're going to influence. Who is the decision maker who you can have as a policy mentor? And what is the research finding that already exists that could influence government? If you can be clear and specific about that, you will know whether it's worth your time to write a proposal. And we believe that there are many of you have great ideas, that many of you have amazing results that government will want to hear, and that policy mentors will be delighted to hear from you because their problem is how do they have a successful government that delivers resources to people, services to people. And that's a very difficult thing to do. They want to hear from you, we believe. Alemne?
Okay, thank you. So, just similar to maybe Antene, I also did an interventional study, and it was more about animal source foods. So the inclusion is very low in our setup. So we tried through behavioral change communication or nutrition education, we tried to help mothers or women and children to include that in their regular diet. So by the time it was like effective or bring change, but we didn't conduct impact assessment since then. This is like before 2 years in 2021. So now what I'm planning is to do a kind of impact assessment. So for this, I want to collect a few new data and bring that finding to the government to impact the policy. So would this plan be reasonable for this call? So
potentially, yes. The question would be, what is the government program or policy that you would hope to change, that you would hope to influence? So do you know, perhaps you know now, what is the name of the program and who are the decision makers? What is its budget? Where is it done? Who does it? Because if there is not an intervention, if there is not an activity that a government agency or public policy or regulation or activity of the public sector in some sense then there's nothing to change. If that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, most research is not specifically about a government choice. So that's why we're building on the policy evaluations, the program impact assessments, the analyses of a government choice. Those are the kinds of research that people can bring to decision making. Most research, of course, is not that kind of research.
And very quickly, before we take Anthony's question, I just wanted to flag for you all, I've been getting a lot of great questions in the chat. I've been answering those right now as Will's been speaking. But if you have additional questions that require more detail than you'd care to share in the Zoom chat box, please email us at anhfellowships@tufts.edu. I will be able to answer in more detail there and have a more in-depth conversation about your specific proposal or your specific question about eligibility or anything else. So can go
There
back
is a
to
question in the chat that I want to make sure people hear clearly, which is from Olutayo Adeyemi, who asks, can the proposed research evidence come from another country? And the answer is definitely yes. It would be very helpful for this science policy fellowship to draw on evidence from anywhere in the world. And in fact, the international nature and as well as the interdisciplinary nature of the ANH Academy should allow us to do that. Thank you.
Okay, can I proceed?
Please.
Maybe this question might be also useful for others. Is it possible to use this fellowship maybe to conduct a little sustainability evaluation, because government sometimes asks for, you know, even if you bring something that works from your interventional study, but government may ask, is this really sustainable? Maybe that intervention, you know, was done 5 years ago or 3 years ago, but so that's the question of government always. So can we use this budget? Of course, for my part, I did a sustainability evaluation. I have also a result for that. So I can come with all those, you know, the interventional study result plus sustainability evaluation result I have already in my hands. So it can be easy for me, but others might need to know about this. Government may ask sustainability evaluation to do some sustainability evaluation. So is it possible to use this fund to do sustainability evaluation?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So there are some government actions, some policies and programs that are one-time events. Sometimes governments do things just once, but usually most government activity that changes the world is done every year, every month, all the time, throughout the year. It's just a policy or program that happens through the normal government budget. That is where most of the activity is. It is by definition sustainable in the sense that it is something that happens every month, every year. It's what government does. That's what we're trying to influence. Sometimes there is a once only government action where they do something just once. But usually you're trying to influence an activity that is done all of the time. The regular regulation, the regular program management, the regular activities of government, that's what we're trying to orient towards improved demand creation for healthy diets and reduced loss and waste along the production and distribution of food. And Yanko again?
Hi. So this could have been answered maybe in the previous one, but I just wanted to make sure I heard that right. It was a question about whether you can use research from other regions. Now my question was, so in a case where you wanted to use some policies that have been effected in another region, could you be able to use that particular evidence? Let's say what you're trying to make an argument for is that this particular program has worked in this region, but we don't have such a program or even evidence of it in our particular region. And what you're basically doing is doing a systematic review of that program and then bringing that to the table. Would that still be viable, or would you need to be actively working in that particular, you would need to have knowledge of your work in that particular space in order for you to bring that out?
Excellent question. Excellent topic aspect of this conversation. So the answer is yes, it would definitely be eligible. The question you would want to ask is, what is likely to be successful? What kinds of evidence, and how would I translate the existing evidence to make it influential, to make it persuasive, to make it effective in the policymaking process in my country? And often you can only find out by trying. So in some cases, yes, you would be doing systematic reviews and showing this worked elsewhere. And that could actually work. But in other cases, you might need different kinds of evidence. So your goal here is to think about what your knowledge and abilities could bring to decision making. And definitely evidence from elsewhere is a big part of what the ANH Academy can offer. I would add there's also evidence from different fields, different disciplines, different areas of work, different specializations. The ANH Academy, of course, is founded on multidisciplinarity. That is our DNA. That is our founding principle, is that agriculture, nutrition, and health can only be understood if you bring evidence from different fields, from veterinary and animal science and plant and agronomy and public health, nutrition, and clinical practice, and economics and business, that if we bring all those together, we can make progress. And we also founded on the idea of internationalism, that you can go from one country to another, that we want our ANH Academy weeks to be places where people come together, not only across disciplines, but across regions. So I hope that people do bring projects that are bringing unexpected sources of data, unexpected sources of evidence from other places and from other fields. There are many examples of that. Just to illustrate, somebody might be an expert in education and have worked in education evaluations, and they would be working on school meals with nutrition, even though they come from an education background, and in addition to the regional kinds of differences.
And I want to keep us on track here for an on-time conclusion. So we can have Tanya ask her last question, and then I'll conclude. But just to remind you all that this recording will be available on the ANH Academy website. So if you need to go back, you can watch it. And our email that's been posted many times in the chat is available for any questions that you have. So I'll turn it over to our last question from Tanya.
Yeah, sorry, I hope you can hear me fine. So on the food loss waste area, we have quite a lot of, I've just finished updating a systematic review actually across 57 sub-Saharan Africa, South Asian countries. And we have a lot of information, evidence on, particularly on technologies, but that can reduce losses. So we have technical information on that. What we don't have very much of is the understanding of the social, economic, or environmental outcomes that relate to that. So to me, that's an enormous gap and a bit of a risk for anybody then taking on those things. So yeah, I'm just kind of, I'm guessing that's pretty often the case across many of the evidence sets, that they're strong on one area and they're missing completely or weak on the other areas. So I just kind of wonder how that, that adds a layer of complexity actually, because there's kind of partial knowledge on that and dominated by the technical efficacy often.
Yes, that's a great point. The way I would answer is that decisions in government are often influenced by one particular kind of evidence without knowing much about other impacts. But if that's the kind of evidence that matters for decision makers, that's the kind of evidence you could bring in the project. So if you are working with an agriculture ministry or infrastructure or local government about, say, cold chains regarding refrigeration, maybe they are really motivated by the technical aspects of the problem. And so bringing technical data to the decision makers is all that you need. But if the decisions are being made in a Ministry of Health or Ministry of Education, again, the example of school feeding, maybe what school feeding programs are really motivated by is school completion and educational outcomes. And so that's the kind of data you would need. So the goal is to match evidence to what decision makers in particular government roles are concerned about. It could be technical, or it could be social, or it could be all of them.
They could be interested in the technical data without understanding it could be having very negative social outcomes on particular groups because it just hasn't been looked at. And I'm not sure many donors would want to support funding into that. That's where I'm saying there's an important knowledge gap. So obviously the technical data wins again and again because that seems to be what's there, but we just have this growing gap of understanding on the environmental implications and the social implications. That's my worry, that if you just follow what's already happening or what's being demanded, you're party to that problem and you're not actually improving understanding and knowledge or decision making because it does need that more complete knowledge. That's just my worry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very important point. So the proposals are scored by a panel that will come from all fields. And so if a proposal appears to be, as you're saying, sort of enabling government to do something that's actually harmful, we would have a very good chance of picking that up. There would be many examples, as you suggest, where deciding on certain criteria would lead to harms in some other domain. And I think our screening process would find those. Because your proposal would be read by people with other backgrounds, bringing all of the available evidence. Of course, our panel is not going to represent all possible knowledge, and mistakes do sometimes happen. But I think we can be confident that the policies and programs that our project would aim to influence will be ones that in retrospect will seem to have been a good idea, because we'll be very mindful of exactly the issue you raised.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to learn about this fellowship opportunity with Will and I today. As I've mentioned, the email to reach us is anhfellowships@tufts.edu. We're available for questions at any time. The application link is live. It's posted on the ANH Academy website, along with the call for applications, and the recording of this session will be posted there. So thanks again for joining. I hope you have a better understanding of what the Science Policy Fellowship provides, what our goals are, what the details of the program are, how we're selecting applications, what criteria your proposals will be assessed on, and what your next steps will be to apply. Thank you again, and thanks to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office at the British government for funding this opportunity and funding the ANH Academy. Thank you all so much. I hope to be in touch over the next weeks and months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.